Hello, everyone. My name is Brennan Barr. That noise you're hearing is my ventilator. And welcome to Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. Today, I would like to talk about themes of the sequel trilogy. Each of the Star Wars trilogy has an overarching theme. Several overarching themes. The original trilogy was about a rebellion against an evil empire. Was about the triumph of the natural order over the mechanized and impersonal. It was about redemption. It was about embracing your heritage. So many things. The prequel trilogy was about the failure of institutions. It was about not trusting in institutions. It was about the folly of youth. It was about an ancient enemy revealing itself. It was about the overthrow of democracy through fear-mongering. Very prescient. So what's the sequel trilogy about? Now, the sequel trilogy is not complete. So we don't really have a full picture of what the entire theme of the sequel trilogy is, or is supposed to be. But we do have some themes. I think the one that overarches the new trilogy, or that we've seen so far, is the idea of legacy. The movies The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi are, in the real world context, are about legacy, and in the stories themselves are about legacy. Now let me talk real quick about real life. The new trilogy thus far has definitely been more of a continuation of the original trilogy than the prequel trilogy. Now that may be deliberate. I do hope that the folks at Lucasfilm realize that the prequels are just as important to a lot of people as the original trilogy, and not just assume that fans love Star Wars, but they hate the prequels. You know, you remember that old rag. Now, some people may still feel that way, but I think that in general, we have seen that that's no longer the case. Regardless, though, it's definitely true. The new trilogy is more of a direct sequel to the original trilogy, which actually chronologically is what it is. So, you know, duh. But the idea is that they're seeking to continue a legacy established 42 years ago with the release of Star Wars in theaters in 1977. Now, going within the story, it's about continuing the legacy established by Han, Luke, and Leia, and Darth Vader / Anakin Skywalker. Since, to be clear, this is his story. The whole saga has been his story to a degree. So, let's begin with this idea of legacy. Kylo Ren is the heir to the legacy of his grandfather. Now, Both Snoke and Kylo Ren see Anakin Skywalker as just Darth Vader. They don't seem to care or to recognize that Darth Vader was defeated and Anakin defeated him. Isn't it ironic? Darth Vader killed Anakin Skywalker, but Anakin Skywalker came around and killed Darth Vader. Darth Vader ceased to exist when Anakin Skywalker chose the light side. But yet Snoke and Kylo Ren seem rather fixated, or Snoke did until his death. Very fixated on the idea of Kylo Ren being a new Darth Vader. Yes, Kylo Ren is a Darth Vader fanboy. He likes to dress up in weird-looking Darth Vader cosplay. That's the whole point. They seem to be ignoring the truth. But Kylo Ren, aka Ben Solo, is an inheritor of the Skywalker legacy. Anakin Skywalker, Luke Skywalker, Han and Leia. He continues that legacy, and my theory is that he will be redeemed, become Ben Solo again, and continue the legacy of the Skywalkers the way it was meant to be. Rey is also an heir to the legacy of the Skywalkers. She is not a Skywalker, but she has inherited the mantle of Skywalker. That is her legacy. We saw also that Han, Leia, and Luke had to try to live up to their own legacies. Luke, because of his actions in the Return of the Jedi, became a legendary figure. And more than legendary, Luke had to try to live up to his own image. And as he explains to Rey, because he failed, or at least in his own eyes he failed, which he did in a way. He failed with Ben Solo. He was ashamed of himself for not living up to his own legacy. Han and Leia were galactic heroes, but they ended up going their separate ways after their son turned to the dark side. Their own legacies, especially Han Solo, kind of tossed out his own legacy to run away. The stories that we see now are about these are favorite characters facing up to their own legacies. And we see with Luke, Leia, and Han, they finally step up to the plate and embrace the legacy that they had denied themselves. Luke, through a lot of help from Rey and Yoda, returned to the fight to ultimately be the hero that we all knew he was. Han had to stop running away and confront his son. He was unsuccessful in persuading his son to abandon the dark side, but he finally did what he should have done long ago. Leia was, as we know in The Last Jedi, thinks her son is gone, but Luke is there to remind her no one's ever really gone. Now, it is entirely possible that Ben Solo is not redeemed in The Rise of Skywalker, and I find it unlikely because Star Wars being like poetry, the redemption of Ben Solo, if it happens, is a rhyme to the redemption of Darth Vader. And I think that Ben Solo needs to live up to the legacy of Anakin Skywalker, not the legacy of Darth Vader. So there's a lot, and there's a lot of other things that we could discuss that deal with legacy in the sequel trilogy. Luke's lightsaber is a symbol of legacy. You know, it was broken at the end of The Last Jedi, but it may yet be repaired in The Rise of Skywalker. Two other themes, briefly. Masks. When we meet Rey, Finn, and Kylo Ren in The Force Awakens, they're all wearing masks. In my mind, they're hiding who they truly are behind a mask. And the story of The Force Awakens, which continues in The Last Jedi, is needing to understand themselves. The masks, I think, symbolize that they do not know themselves. They're hiding behind a mask, whether willingly or unwillingly. They do not fully understand who they are. And in classic monomyth fashion, the characters need to discover who they are. That's ultimately what the hero's journey is about, is self-discovery. Coming of age, if you will. Our characters, these three in particular, do not know themselves. And thus must come to learn who they are. And I think the masks symbolize that, and the journey continues on self-discovery. I hope that Kylo Ren, or rather Ben Solo, truly comes around and embraces who he really is, not who he's pretending to be. Pretending, I should say. And the other legacy, or not legacy, but the other theme, particularly prevalent in The Last Jedi, is the theme of perspective. There are several instances, three I would like to focus on briefly, in The Last Jedi of people interpreting things in a different point of view, depending on how they perceive it. First one is the story of Ben Solo's turn when he betrayed Luke and destroyed the Jedi Temple. There are three different tellings of what happened. The first telling was from Luke, explaining that Kylo Ren betrayed him when Luke went to confront him about the darkness rising in him. That's perspective one. The second perspective is Kylo Ren's perspective, where he saw Luke standing over him ready to kill him, that Luke had betrayed him. And the third perspective, the one that we assume to be true, is Luke telling Rey that he had sensed the darkness in Kylo Ren. He ignited his lightsaber and thought for a brief moment about striking down his nephew, but then chose against it. But his nephew saw that ignited blade and believed that his uncle had betrayed him and failed him. The three perspectives. It's a reference to Akira Kurosawa's film Rashomon, which tells the story of a murder from several, I believe, 5 different perspectives. So we get a matter of interpretation. The other one is when Rey and Ben touch hands in the hut. Rey sees in her mind that Kylo Ren will betray Snoke. That's true. That does happen. But Rey interpreted it to mean that Kylo Ren will betray Snoke, turn back to the light, and the galaxy will be saved. But Rey, in her eagerness, runs off to save Ben Solo despite the warnings of Luke. And unfortunately, it doesn't go the way she thinks. But that was her perspective. So what she saw was true, but she chose to interpret it in a slightly different way than what really happened because of what she wanted to see. And the third issue of perspective is when Snoke sees in Kylo Ren's mind that he is going to turn his lightsaber and kill his true enemy. Snoke, however, does not realize that while he may be correct, the true enemy is Snoke, and the lightsaber being turned is Luke's lightsaber, which is sitting next to Snoke on his throne. A matter of perspective. And Snoke interpreted it incorrectly. Probably with Kylo Ren doing a bit of the Force to manipulate Snoke's mind. Or at least cloud Snoke's mind without Snoke even knowing it. Matters of perspective. The Last Jedi, in many ways, is about perspective and how we perceive things, often based on how we want to perceive them, instead of what actually is true. So those are my thoughts on the themes of the new trilogy. When The Rise of Skywalker comes out, no doubt we will have, since we will have the full picture, no doubt we will have overarching themes that cover all 3 movies. But I believe that the one that does so far cover the new trilogy is Legacy. It's continuing the legacy of those who came before and helping those who came before realize their full potential. My name is Brendan Ward. That noise you're hearing is my ventilator. And thank you so much for tuning in to Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. May the Force be with you.